So thank you all. Welcome for being here today. Thanks for coming in a very um, interactive and engaging mood. We got a lot to talk about with the weather, so keep that going. I hope you have a chance to say hello to some colleagues that you haven't talked to in a second. So keep that up. If you haven't already, please share a little greeting by saying this morning. I think we all know who each other are, but if you could remind people your region and stuff in the box, that would be fantastic. I'm again, thank you for being here today. Very snowy day in some parts of our state. I hope that you were able to stay warm and safe in whatever your endeavors were this weekend. This is our second today of a series. Our second presentation of a series around mental health and family engagement and how we can, take some focused approaches within this big umbrella thing that people talk about all the time is student mental health, and in school, and give some like practical, actionable approaches to maybe addressing some of that through some of the perspectives that you'll hear today. And of course, you heard last time from Dr. Zromsky. So we're really excited to have colleagues from Miami University here today. So get ready, make sure you got your coffee topped off, any other beverages, snacks you might need. So yes, and Meredith, give us a shout out if we have any Miami alumni in here. Always exciting to reconnect. So just to give you an idea of where the agenda is going as you get settled in here, we did our little welcome here. We're going to have some time today, just really briefly, to give some announcements from the center before I turn it over to hear about some resources and lessons from the Center for School-Based Mental Health Programs at Miami University. We got some great colleagues from there, so we're really excited. We'll have some time to maybe debrief at the end and share some resources, so look forward to that. I look forward to doing this learning right alongside with you. So I want to take a moment now and see if our wonderful see if we have sorry, skipping a Monday makes Tuesday Monday. My words are going out the window. So I wanted to share some announcements today. We don't have too many announcements for you. As you know, we kind of keep in touch with you through a variety of projects. Off the top of my head at the center, we are just continuing to look forward to some trainings that are coming up. You know, we got those trainings that that have been registering for a couple weeks now. Those introductions to family engagement trainings, family engagement 101, things like that. We also got some MMPS events coming up at the end of the month, so consult your calendars for those if you're the touch points. Got some exciting things there. So that was kind of a bumble of weird half announcements. I would like to, though, continue to extend the offer for you all to share any announcements in the chat. So thank you for working with me through that. And now I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to our colleagues at the University of Miami. We have heard about this staff and the work that they've been doing across school wellness and other initiatives for some time now, and finally had a great way to connect and reconnect some of our with some of our colleagues from there to put together a presentation on some of the work that they're doing. When we got together to give like a primer about what was going to go on today, I was really excited about some of the ideas and resources that this group was sharing things that are practical, things that are based in research, things that can make an impact when applied in the appropriate situations and with the appropriate implementation. So this is stuff that's right in our wheelhouse. I think it's going to be things that you can take out into your work, and some ideas that you can maybe evolve and think about on your own. So without further ado, I will turn it over today and allow our colleagues from Miami University to introduce themselves. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having us. We're very excited to be here. I'm going to introduce myself, and I will let my friends introduce themselves also. I'm Deb Robison. I'm with the Center for School-Based Mental Health Programs at Miami University. I'm a project administrator here. And I'm going to let Cricket introduce herself.
So I am Cricket Meehan. I'm the director of the Center for School-Based Mental Health Programs. I actually just got back from vacation from Florida. So University of Miami sounds great. I would love to go back and like the feet of snow people have. It was a little bit of a shock coming back. We only had about 2 inches, but I may also, Tom, have vacation brain. So I'm just warning everyone in advance. But Kyle, you're up.
Yes, I'm Kyle Bush. I'm also with the Center for School-Based Mental Health Programs, and I'm the Research and Evaluation Associate. And thank you all for meeting with us today.
All right, Kyle, do you want to get us loaded up?
Yep.
Great. So while Kyle is getting our PowerPoint together, one of the things that we want to do is make sure that this is really interactive. So we really need to hear from you. So we are gonna unmute, or ask everyone to unmute for just a second. And what we'd really like to hear about is, like, we have certain ideas about what we want to share, but certainly everybody came today with some idea of what you just really hoped that you were going to hear today. So if we could just have some folks just give us a couple of ideas of what did you really hope when you logged on today, you thought, man, if I hear this today, my life is going to change.
Useful strategies.
Useful strategies. Okay, what else?
Maybe some data that gives hope to the impact of family engagement and mental health.
Data that gives hope. Okay, what else?
About some free resources and scaffolding to how to create these school-based mental health partnerships.
Free resources and scaffolding. Okay. What else?
Examples from Ohio schools and districts.
Awesome. Examples from Ohio schools. Okay. Can we have like 3 or 4 more? All right.
I'd like some tips for families to know that they can partner with the school districts to support their children in mental health. Just to know that that's a possibility, and to help to provide that support for families.
Okay. Tips for families, support for families.
Maybe information about how either this network or maybe there's a different network available to coaches and practitioners out there that this group could plug into.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so here's what I have written down. Useful strategies. I do think you're going to get some useful strategies today. At least I hope that's what we deliver to you. Data that gives hope. I think that we don't have as much by way of statistics, but the information that we have is based in data, and we know because it's based in data that these are things that are successful. So we're hopeful that the information that we give you, because it's based in research and based in data, that will in fact give you some hope. We do have some free resources for you. In fact, at the end, we have a Google folder that we'll be sharing out with folks, and that has some resources in it. And we hope that the way that we deliver this will give you the opportunity to think about how you can scaffold this and into larger areas, smaller areas if you have schools that are not quite ready for the big examples. We do have some examples from Ohio schools. The tips for supporting families, I think we do, but it will be really in the context of some programming ideas. So we'll try to kind of point that out when we get to those. Really, when we're talking about, we'll be talking about like a student assistance program and some other kinds of specific programs that if we have the structure in place, then it makes it easier for parents to get support. And then info about a network or other places to plug into. We are going to talk a little bit about the National Network of Partnership Schools, which is a great place to plug into. And that's something that OSU uses, I believe, as part of your overarching kind of way that you approach things. So I think we're going to hit on most of these things today. But if we don't, well, that certainly tells us that we have things that we need to come, go find more information and bring back to you. So do you want to take us to the next slide, Kyle? So here's what we're doing today. We're doing welcome and expectations, and I don't know why the little S got on the very end there. Epstein's 6 types of parent involvement. We're going to talk about the Ohio Model Student Assistance Program. We're going to talk a little bit about the School Navigator and Family Checkup programs, and then we have some time for questions, some other resources, and next steps. So that'll be kind of our flow for today. So to get us started, Kyle is going to talk to us a little bit about Joyce Epstein's 6 types of family involvement, just by either show of hands or in the chat. How many folks are familiar with Epstein's 6 types of family involvement? Okay. Looks like we have a few. Okay. Well, we're gonna go ahead and good. Yes, a lot of yeses. Good. So then we should have a lot of great, rich discussion when we talk about this. So we're gonna talk about this, and we're gonna make some applications specific to mental health. So, and mental health programming. So be thinking about in your region or in your area, as we go through each one of these types of involvement, help us be thinking of some good examples that we can share with the rest of the group. So Kyle, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you start talking about this.
Yeah, so as Deb mentioned, we wanted to be sure to talk a little bit about Joyce Epstein's 6 types of family involvement, and as most of you know, it's a framework for 6 essential dimensions of community engagement and involvement, and it's really a two-way partnership between educators and families working together. And so we're going to go through each one of these. And so the 6 types are parenting, communicating, volunteering, learning at home, decision making, and then collaborating with community. And so as Deb mentioned, we're going to go through each of these, and we may ask you all, kind of where have you seen this, and examples, and so forth. All right, so the first type is parenting, and so parenting is really there we go. Am I back on? All right. So parenting, is it's the first type of family involvement, and it's family practices and home environments supporting children and students. And it's really focuses on schools, the importance of schools having an understanding of children's families, and kind of for these slides. So we have sample practices, the challenges, and then expected results for students, parents, and teachers. And so for the parenting type of involvement, sample practices include, providing suggestions for home conditions, facilitating learning at each level, trainings, in regards to for parents on child rearing at each grade level, family support programs, and then like home visits at transition points. So for elementary school, transition point, middle school, and high school. And so challenges that can occur to this type of involvement includes, it's really important that information is disseminated to all parents, families that need it, and not just the ones that are able to attend the workshops. And then also another challenge is that it's really, really important that information must be clear and useful to student school success. And so, and then the, kind of the expected results from this type of involvement. So for students, it would be, understanding of school policies on behavior, as well as awareness of programs and actions needed to succeed. And then for parents, it would be
Kyle, I'm sorry. I think you skipped ahead. You're in communicating. I think the slide flipped ahead one.
Let's see. Sorry about that. All right, back to parenting. And so for the expected results for parenting, for students, it would be obviously respect for parents, obviously, and also positive personal qualities, better attendance. For parents, it would be more of an understanding of and confidence regarding child and adolescent development, better awareness of challenges that come with parenting, and then also feeling supported. And I think I skipped over again, but I'm going to go back. There we go. Caught it that time. And for teachers, an understanding of families' backgrounds, cultures, and goals, and also an understanding of student diversity. So those are really the expected results.
So our question to you then is, what have you seen in this area? What type of activities? This is kind of the low-hanging fruit of parent involvement. We offer a workshop, or we offer some kind of something around identifying signs of suicide, or anxiety and depression, or how to deal with test taking. I think about things like youth mental health first aid. Those kinds of activities are parenting types of activities where we're offering some kind of training or some kind of support that way. But what kind of things have you seen out in your communities that might be a little different, that you can share with the rest of the group that would be interesting to us? Has somebody done this in a way that you've seen, or a way that you think would be interesting to try? So I think that one of the things that we think a lot about, as someone who worked in the school for many years, a lot of times we think of these kinds of things happening when parents come to us, when they come to our building. So I think one of the things that we need to think about when we think about parenting types of activities, or what are some other ways those can happen. They don't always necessarily have to happen in our buildings. So what are some ways that you're seeing this happen in community settings? All right.
I'll jump in really quickly since I have a young one that has mental health concerns at home. And so obviously that affects academics as well. And we're kind of chatting over in the chat box about this, the connection between academics and mental health are so important. But I know as a parent, what I'm doing at home, my regular checking in with my son or helping him develop a schedule or all of those kinds of support and logistical things have made a tremendous difference in teaching him the responsibility and the perseverance and all of that he needs to do then at school or in other settings. And so it may not feel like such a huge strategy as a parent on my end, but it makes a big difference later. So I just wanted to point that out.
Sure. So has anybody partnered with a community organization to provide something, maybe at a library or at a community center or with the Y or in some other mechanism, some other way? Terry.
Not recently, but I have in the past where I've collaborated with the local Adams board and actually individuals going through whatever issue it is to inform the community about. We've done a couple around substance abuse and the opioid crisis and how people were dealing with that. But then we've also brought in a family and an individual with bipolar who would share what they're going through as they're within the school setting and trying to learn and coping and all these things. And it made for really nice table discussions. And then you find out people at the table, I have a cousin or my neighbor's going through this and things like that. And there's a little more back and forth between people because often around mental health, people sort of shut down and are very closed and don't want to share because they're afraid of the stigma and everything, as well as the student themselves, you know.
That's a great example. And I saw a couple of other people were putting something in. So Marla, would you be willing to share what you're doing with the Down Syndrome Association?
Good morning, Deb. Absolutely. It's not current due to our recent situation with COVID. They have sort of postponed their parent classes, but we had a series of classes that went on for parents that actually were driven by their concerns. So it may have ranged from just how to communicate with our schools. What should we do if we have this certain type of concern? How do we navigate this part of the waters? And even just all over the idea of our kiddos that might be considered Down syndrome. What are the different obstacles that they might encounter? That is not only academic, behavioral, but also that social emotional piece. So it's really quite fun. I sort of miss meeting with those parents, and I'm hoping that soon we'll be able to get those back up and running.
Nice. Very good. Very good. And Dr. Wellman, I love what you have written about mindfulness training. Is that something you could share with us?
Well, the district leader in Toledo shared it with us last week in a colleague connect meeting. So I don't have a whole lot more details, but
okay.
Suffice it to say, they are really trying to sort of capitalize on family strengths within their district. So the example they gave was they heard about a parent who was a certified mindfulness trainer. So they're bringing her in to do the training and really just speaking about her experience as a parent and the usefulness of the tools that she has to share. And then they're planning to collect a little bit of data on the impact of that training. And then also they're encouraging her to present to the board. So I just love that it's building that particular parent's capacity to lead in the district and then also sharing really helpful information about the importance
Sure.
of mindfulness for kids and families.
Nice, nice. I saw Virtual Parent Cafe, which is a wonderful way to involve families in parenting activities. Do any of your schools have like a family peer support person who can like walk alongside families who might be experiencing difficulties? Marla, you do? Okay. So those are great ways to see parenting as an example of family involvement. Great. Okay, Kyle, I'm going to give this.
I see Kim has her hand raised.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Kim.
Hey guys, it's Kim. I'm working with a community school who is within very close to Ohio Northern University. So Ohio Northern University, their students come out and they provide surveys to the students at the community school. And I know 100% of the students have multiple ACEs. They have multiple things that are going on and multiple health concerns. So I'm wondering if the students then the students at Ohio Northern could take that information and then direct into what kind of supports that they could provide in the parent center that's at the community school. So it's just an idea that I got from listening to this that would make perfect sense based on that community school's data. They could specifically get, support for those families in that district.
That is a great idea. And hold on to that thought, because when we come to the end, we're going to want to talk about what do you do next. So that's a great idea. That's a great idea to use something that already exists and include family involvement in that. Perfect. Okay, Kyle, do you want to talk to us about the next type of involvement?
Yeah, the next type of involvement is communicating. And this, I just got a message that says my internet connection is unstable. So let me know if you have any trouble hearing me. But this really refers to kind of effective forms of school to home and home to school communications between educators, students, and families. And then the sample practices for communicating is really, so obviously conferences and follow-ups. And then also, a regular schedule of useful notices for parents. So having, an efficient and regular schedule of notices, as well as clear info on school policies, programs, and so forth. Challenges associated with this type of involvement is really, it can, review, it's really important to really review and kind of, look at all of the major forms of communications and see what can be improved to make them more efficient and more effective. And also making sure that the communication activities are accessible for all families. And so it's really important. And then for the expected results for students, parents, and teachers, for students, it's really awareness of own programs and then actions needed to succeed, as well as understanding of school policies on behavior. For parents, it's really a better understanding of school programs and policies, as well as effective responses to parent problems. And then finally, for teachers, more effective communications with families, and then also, the development of more self-awareness in regards to their own communication skills.
So communication is one of those that's a little bit tricky, right? Because we have to communicate with everybody, but no one way is the right way. And when we think about communication, again, I was in the schools for a very long time, and obviously the very first thing we go to is, well, let's get a flyer together, right? That's the very first thing we do is let's get a flyer together. And I saw somebody just wrote that communication can be overwhelming if you have multiple kids and multiple backpacks to go through. And that's all very true. So what are some things that you've seen that seem to be really effective strategies for communication that you're noticing in some of your schools? And even if you're a parent and it's your own child's school, what is an effective strategy for schools to communicate? And let's think even more deeply. Let's not just like rest on communicate about, the bake sale is next week, but how can schools effectively communicate about mental health kinds of things, mental health services, mental health programs, mental health policies? How might we do that? Okay, well, I'll go first. One of the things that I had done when I was in the school district is I would, at the beginning of each year, have a community fair. And as kids were coming in to kind of do their walkthrough, see where their classrooms were, we would have tables set up outside, and we would have different service providers, different community providers. They would all come and they would have information about their programs. They would have ways to sign up. They would have, flyer. They would have everything they needed. The hours of service. This is how you get involved, so that from the very beginning, people kind of knew who they were and who they could go to for different services and different kinds of help. That's a fairly standard one. What are some other ones? I see, Josh, you've just written something. Can you share with us about what is P4L?
That's Partnerships for Literacy. And it was as a result of one of the inventories that we sent out to our partnership district. One of their main concerns was communication, and a lot of the things that people were talking about earlier, where, I have a child in this grade and this grade, and there are a million different platforms that I'm being communicated, it was more of a push out model than obtaining information model for the district. So they switched to this particular platform, Blooms, where across the district, and they even had classes for parents to show, use this, how can we use this in every aspect, and how are we gaining feedback this way as well. And it worked very well for them so far.
Nice. Very good. And I see someone has talked about social media. Was there a specific method that they used? Did they have one person in charge? I think, Susan, you were talking about social media.
Yes, she was just added onto our an NPS team, and I know it's unconventional, but she has 1 million followers. Wow. And so we have started to utilize her to push out some information to get families more involved. And it started out small, but it is really growing. And the district has seen that it's been a huge benefit for them to communicate that information out.
Awesome. Cricket, I know you're going to talk a little bit about Aubrey and yours, but can you share just how Aubrey might promote?
Yeah, a couple key points. So Aubrey is a data dashboard communication tool, kind of a behind the scenes tool. Deb loves to describe it as it's sort of like the kitchen cabinets that hold everything, and everything then can go around it. So lots of different apps and tools and systems integrate into this, and it's open to all of the key stakeholders. So school personnel, community mental health providers, community agencies, families, students, everyone can have access to this. Lots of different things can be there. We're going to talk about maybe a little bit of what's there, and there's other platforms that do this as well. But I think the idea of having a unified, comprehensive platform can be really valuable. So trainings can be there, communication tools can be there. Ways for if someone's noticing something, a school personnel, for example, and they need to get that information to a provider or to a parent, there's communication tools. I know Barb mentioned the idea of home languages. So these technology tools really can help us open up the language barrier pretty quickly. They can auto translate, and it may not be the best translation, but it's a good start. to get things into home languages as well. So I think there's some really great opportunities using newer technologies and newer platforms to help us in this communication area. So did I hit everything you wanted me to talk about, Deb?
Sounds great. Yeah, awesome. Okay, Kyle, do you want to go to the next, to our volunteering one? Our volunteering section?
All right, so volunteering is the next type of family involvement, and it's really having opportunities to incorporate families to participate in volunteer activities in regards to supporting school functioning and student learning. Sample practice is really school and classroom volunteer programs. Challenges that that can occur with this type of involvement. It's really important to disseminate the information about opportunities as widely as possible. And so it's really important to also provide ample opportunities for parents to be able to, in ample opportunities and in different types of opportunities, so that each person can use their own skill set and abilities in regards to when volunteering. And the expected results from this type of involvement is so for students, it's really improved communication skills with adults. Also students can really become aware of their own talents, their own abilities. They can really learn a lot about themselves through this. Also, parents, their expected results is really, a better understanding of the teacher's job and the teacher's responsibilities, as well as, parents can really gain more feelings in regards to being welcome at schools from volunteering. And then for teachers, helping facilitate these opportunities for families to be able to volunteer, and for them to, really, being prepared to involve families is in many different ways. And then also for teachers, really can really gain awareness of parents' talents and abilities and so forth and skill sets from volunteering, and also can learn of different ways for parents to help out.
So we know that there's a lot of background checks. So given the idea of background checks and those kinds of things, how might we use parent volunteers in a way that is helpful, that strengthens youth mental health? How might we intentionally do this kind of thing? One of the things that I think about is with kind of the plethora of after-school programs and after-school initiatives, there's the opportunity for adults and caregivers to share information or passions or things that they are interested in with young people. And I think Cricket mentioned in the chat about developmental relationships. And we know that when young people have caring adults in their lives, they're more likely to be successful. What are some other ways that adults can function in this volunteering type of involvement that you've seen in your schools? I see some examples in here. Volunteering is a little trickier one because there's some limitations on that. So I think anything like being a mentor, having parents connect with other parents who might be going through a similar kind of situation. It can be combined with doing things like divorce support groups, divorce recovery groups, parenting support groups, where folks can lead those groups who have their own experience with that, their own lived experience. Those are all ways.
And I'll just jump in. I know a lot of times schools are often asking for, donations for maybe an art or craft project or different things like that. And so that could potentially be a way for families to volunteer that aren't necessarily able to make it to the school setting or somewhere else, but they're able to do something behind the scenes at home, and they can involve their children. And I know tips for families was something that was on the list today. So the idea of, those are opportunities, if you're collecting at home, paper towel rolls for an art project, you can then have conversations with your child about, the value of doing that, and the skills or the values that are involved in what that activity means, and how important it is to the school. So I think it opens up a lot of opportunities too at home for volunteering opportunities.
Sure. And I think, Terry, you're exactly right, is the types of opportunity they need to be varied. Not everybody can come to school. Not everybody can do those kinds of things. Just as my personal example, when I was in middle school, my mom drove a school bus, and the way she volunteered is she would volunteer to be a driver when we would go on some kind of field trip. She would volunteer that service. So people can volunteer in lots of different ways. And how do we help connect that then back to positive youth development, positive mental health? So, okay. Kyle, do you want to take us to the next one?
All right, so learning at home is the next type of involvement. And this really focuses on making sure that the information is provided in regards to educating families about how they can help out students at home with homework and other activities as well, decisions and planning. And then kind of the sample practices for this, really examples, information provided for parents on how to assist children with their homework related activities. Also family participation in helping students develop yearly goal setting techniques. Challenges associated with learning at home with this type of involvement. Oops, let's see. I need to quit touching the screen when I on the challenges associated with this. Really, it's really important to include families with their children and or try to include families with their children in curriculum related decisions. Also, organizing regular scheduled interactive homework. Those are really some challenges associated with being involved in regards to the learning at home, and then the expected results for students, parents, and teachers. For students, really, improve skills, abilities, as well as test scores linked to activities, related to homework. Also, positive attitudes towards schoolwork. For parents, better awareness of how to support and help students at home, as well as discussions of school classwork and homework. And then finally, for teachers, kind of a improved design of activities related to homework, and then kind of more respect for parent and students and appreciation for parent and students family time.
Great. So when we talk about learning at home, a lot of this particular type, as you can see, really kind of hones in on the schoolwork and the academic work. But I think that this is really the opportunity for us to assist families in some of those strategies. I think, Cricket was kind of mentioning this earlier, those strategies that if they're implemented at home can make a difference in the child's functioning and well-being. And so what are those learning at home activities that we can promote, that we can support? And I think, Cricket just mentioned that the pandemic has really shown us that, learning at home is important, and preparing families for that learning at home is really important. And specifically when we think about social emotional learning and mental health, one of the ideas that came to us by way of one of our pilot schools that we're working with was a home resource kit. And just as an example, the school guidance counselor had been working with a young person in around anxiety, and that she kind of had a model that she used, a book that she used to go through anxiety with the young people that she works with. And so she took a copy of this book and a couple of like one-page, defining anxiety, strategies for managing anxiety. She put that book, some of those one-pagers, and a can of Play-Doh in a like a little tote bag, and communicated with the parent about this, sent it home, and asked the mom to read this book, and gave her the instructions that she would normally have done in her office, like to read this book about anxiety, and then to talk about it, and then to take the Play-Doh and make an anxiety monster, and with every strategy, remove a piece of the Play-Doh so that the anxiety is gone. It's a very simple home learning tool, and the mom came back to the counselor and said, "Oh my gosh, you have just made such a difference in our life. We are talking the same language that you're talking here, and our daughter is getting it now, and we're on the right track, and I have the language to help her." And so those kinds of things can be really beneficial, and we know that they're fairly simple to put together. And the resources exist, and books on so many topics exist. And so those are, we do have one school that's putting those together. And I think that was one of the things that we've got some graduate students that are working on creating some templates so that you could grab the template and go and create your bags, your home resource kits. So that's one example of learning at home. Are there other examples that people can think of? I could use the anxiety monster too. Yes, absolutely. Schools can partner with their local libraries. That's a great idea. That is a great idea. Yeah, all of those are great ideas. You could do a Zoom story. I saw Zoom on there, a Zoom story time for a certain age group of young people that have, that addresses a mental health concern, that parents are in the room and they're hearing it and can learn those strategies along the way. Awesome. Okay, let's move on to decision making.
All right. So the next type of involvement is decision making, and so this is really focusing on including parents in school related decisions, and that the parents are provided opportunities to participate in leadership positions, leadership groups, leadership opportunities. And so sample practices is really active groups. Available for parents, opportunities for parents to participate in decision making. So like PTAs and advisory groups and so forth. The challenges associated with this type of involvement. It's really important to attain parent leader representation in groups involving decisions, and then also it's important to try to also include students in the decision-making groups as well. And then the expected results from this type of involvement for students, it's really gaining awareness of families' involvement in school decision-making, as well as understanding of their rights being protected. For parents, it's being involved in decision-making toward policies affecting their child's education, and then better awareness of school district, state policies, of school district and state policies. And then finally for teachers, gaining an increased awareness of an increased understanding of parents' perspectives in regards to on the policies.
So when we think about decision making, I saw somebody mention in volunteering, and I thought I'd go back to that. When we think about decision making, somebody had mentioned they could review information that was on websites or information before it went out to families. That's a great point. And I think the other piece of that lies in this decision making is, do they also have the authority to offer suggestions and insight? Is it simply kind of looking at it for typos and that kind of thing? So decision making, that gets a little tricky sometimes for schools, because schools don't always want to give away the power, right? So how do we help prepare schools to share some of the decision making, and what are some of the points that we can have parents and family members be part of decision making? I saw somebody wrote parents on the PBIS team, and I think that's great. So how might we help schools be ready for parents to be on the PBIS team, as opposed to just having a token person on there? Are we providing them the training they need, the onboarding they need? Do we give them the information ahead of time so they can make thoughtful decisions? The same thing with any kind of mental health service that comes into the building. Are we including parents as part of, and if we have community schools, are they part of that team that brings on folks? In our pilot schools, and Cricket's going to talk a little bit about pilot schools, we work with an organization called Mindpeace here in Southwest Ohio that works to as kind of a go-between between mental health organizations and schools, and they want parents to be part of that, determining which mental health providers actually come into the school. So it's not just, hey, you look good, come in here and be part of our school district. What other ways can we include families in the decision making for schools? What have you seen? That's another, being involved in the student's IEP, being part of this student assistance program. Review community partners, mental health support. I think those are all great things. So the more we include families in being part of the first part of the decision making, the better off we are. And ultimately, if we don't, I've seen this happen a couple of times. If we don't include parents in the decision making in a positive way, we have parents that they decide, okay, well then I'm going to be in a more formal way. So they run for school boards, right? And which is a good thing. We want people to be involved in being on school boards, but that is a form of decision making also. All right, let's get to our last one, collaborating with the community.
All right, so collaborating with the community is the last of the 6 types of family involvement, and this really focuses on community services, resources, and partners being involved in the educational process to improve school programs, student learning, family practices. So some sample practices for this, really having information for students and families on community programs, providing information on community activities, lead to learning, socio-emotional learning, and mental health. And then challenges is it's extremely important to ensure equity of opportunities for students and families to participate in the community activities. Also, it's extremely important to disseminate the dissemination of information to families about opportunities and disseminating that as widely as possible. The expected results for students, it's increased skills through participating in community activities, Also, it kind of goes to also kind of we talked about with volunteering, how they'll learn about their talents and so forth. They'll also gain that as well through collaborating with the community and participating in community activities. For parents, increased awareness of opportunities that are available for students locally, and then gaining a better awareness of the school's role in the community. And then finally, for teachers, an increased awareness of community resources that are available for students as well as parents.
Great. So collaborating with the community, what are some things that you've seen that work or seen that haven't worked in terms of collaborating with the community? Meredith, can you say more about what you just wrote?
Oh, sorry. I don't have my headset plugged in at the moment, but hopefully you can still hear me. I think I was speaking to the last type of involvement, not this one.
Okay. So one thing about community collaborating with the community is helping parents to know, this kind of goes back to that communicating, right? Helping parents know what's available in the community. One thing that we have on our Aubrey site, which Cricket's going to speak to in a little bit, is the website findhelp.org. Some of you may be familiar with that, but that is a community resource, kind of nationwide community resource system that people can put in their zip code and find community resources. That's certainly having people connect with community. Any other kinds of mental health services that can be listed on a website or referred, families could be referred to if there are local like NAMI chapters, finding where substance use recovery, 12-step programs might be, any of those things that allow families to get connected to community resources is important. And schools are often the hubs of those kinds of things. And so we really need to make sure that we're not just posting football game schedules, but also where people can get other kinds of help and support. Are there other questions, other thoughts? Oh, okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
One of my districts that I work with, they've been having trouble with student attendance. So they've gone out to the businesses in their district and they've asked them about their attendance policies, and they've kind of collected a list of, you missed 3 days and you don't have a job anymore. You're 5 minutes late. That's a whole point off of your attendance. So it's making them realize that attendance is important in your full-time job too. And this is probably a company that you're going to go work for, a business that you're going to go work for within our community. So I'm thinking I know this is for later, but what if you asked about the mental health supports that your company has, that your company provides? So students know that, they have them at their school, but they know that they're still going to be supported when they graduate and when they move to work in their community.
No, that's awesome. No, we want you to share your ideas. Just, I want you to hold on to it in your brain too. But no, those are really great points. And I love that idea of connecting with the community on very tangible kinds of things. Are some of you familiar with attendanceworks.org? Does that sound like a resource that you're aware of? Some of you maybe? Yes. Okay, great. They have attendanceworks.org it's obviously their focus is on attendance, but they have very strong family engagement practices and components to that. So I would think that would be a wonderful resource also to include in your tool belt. So we are going to move now to talking about some very specific systemic programs. We've talked a little bit about some quick strategies or some smaller like one-time programs or a little bit larger programs, but we're going to talk for the next few minutes about some larger systemic programs that can include parents and also impact mental health for young people. So we're going to turn it over now to Cricket, and I'll let Cricket go to go from here.
Thank you, Deb. So many of you may already know this, but as a result of the pandemic, our governor's office here in Ohio recognized the need to support student and staff mental health and wellness. And so we were asked to be a part of developing the Ohio School Wellness Initiative. So the Ohio School Wellness Initiative has two major components to it. The first is a student assistance program. We'll talk about that. And then the second piece is a staff wellness component. So the idea that everyone in our school buildings are being supported and their mental health and well-being is a focus. And everyone knows, the data shows that our academic success is critical. I mean, we absolutely must have mentally well students and staff to have academic success. So what this first slide is showing you is really the overall picture of what we're doing. And we started this project January of last year. We have funding through September 30th of this year to establish the tools and the resources. And we're doing that with the help of 80, although a few have dropped out now, pilot schools throughout the state of Ohio. Our 80 pilot schools are spread out in all of your regions. So chances are each of you may have a school who is in your local area that is part of our initiative. They're helping us vet these resources. So we're pushing them out to the pilot schools. We're doing a lot of two-way communication and getting their feedback. And the goal will be that everything that I described will be available and ready to be up and running for the 22-23 school year for everyone in the state of Ohio. So right now it's just for our pilot schools. Be aware though that very shortly, we're hoping summer and then into the upcoming school year, it's available for everyone. But what this is, it really is, the student assistance program, part of it is about having a full comprehensive continuum of support for students. So we know that many schools in Ohio do PBIS well. Tier 1 tends to be the best component in many schools where they're providing that universal support. And I mean, it would be great if that's all we needed. We just needed that universal support, and no one ever needed tier 2 and tier 3 services. But unfortunately, we know students do, and we know that the pandemic has actually worsened that in many cases. So that's what this is all about, is strengthening those tier 2 and those tier 3 supports so that we have everyone who would need any sort of service or support covered. And then if you see, so that's the PBIS model, which I know you all know intimately well, in the middle. Surrounding that model is the student assistance program, which is about building awareness, providing prevention services and supports, having that early identification and screening so that we're aware of problems as early as we can possibly be, to get those evidence-based interventions in sooner rather than later to have the best outcomes. There's a whole series of referral processes that happen, and referrals can come from anyone. It could be internal to the school, the parents, the caregivers can refer, students can self-refer, community members can refer. So it's a very broad referral process. And then guided support services and case management for students who are needing those more intensive services. And all of this is founded on that very bottom dark blue bar there, which is that we know that if we have well staff supporting our students, they're going to be able to do that job better. And so there is a tremendous focus on providing staff wellness resources, professional development kinds of things, so that everyone knows about the student assistance program model and how it functions and how they can engage in it. And then I'm sure you're all jumping for joy for that third one. The family school community partnerships are critical to this work, and really breaking down the silos among all of the different components as well. So we know that our providers and our schools need to talk to one another and have that shared vision and mission. Our families need to be able to engage with providers and with the schools, et cetera. And then we're building this model on 4 guiding pillars, which are that it's systematic, that it's collaborative, that it's equitable, and that it's sustainable. So I won't go into too much detail, but that is the foundation of the student assistance program model. So Kyle, if you can move to the next slide. I always have to do the slide changing, so I like it when someone else does it. Thanks, Kyle. So this is the framework, and you can again see that bottom tier is really about building awareness. So the idea of having a referral process, and everyone knows how to engage in that referral process, or everyone knows how to identify those early signs and symptoms. And tier 1 really is about that school-wide safe and supportive learning environment. You can see that as you're moving up the chain, there's the idea of using universal screening or early warning systems. And so we've built a lot of that into our Ohio School Wellness Initiative. So we're providing access to a variety of different approaches that individuals can take to identify whatever may be happening with any student as early as possible. And then the referral. So if things have been noticed, that our school staff, our caregivers, our students, their friends, or community members can refer to the student assistance team. In the center there, you'll see that teaming is a pretty critical component. And when we're talking about teaming in the Ohio School Wellness Initiative, we're not just talking about an internal school team, but the teaming approach opens it up to the community providers, to the families, and to the students to be a critical part of that as well. As we move up the tier in the student assistance program, I mean, again, the goal would be that we wouldn't need tier 2 and tier 3, but we know the reality is that we do. And so as we move up and we've started to identify students who may have concerns, then we can identify what are those evidence-based interventions that can support that low intensity need for students who may be in tier 2, and then getting them into that service. So we are, during this year, identifying as many resources and supports internal to schools and external to schools that we can, and then the process that everyone can take to integrate and align with those services. If students continue to need higher intensity, then you move up the tier into that tier 3, into more intensive evidence-based interventions and guided supports, and then involving everyone, surrounding everyone, and wrapping around that child the supports and services that are needed. So if you can go to the next slide, Kyle. So that is what the first 2 slides I showed you really are the foundation of the student assistance program. This will give you a sense of the engagement, so the flow chart about how relationships are working, because we know that for the student assistance program model to work well, the relationships among all of the different groups need to be really strong. And that's you all as a group. I mean, that's what you do in your work, is to build those relationships among your key stakeholders. So a big part of that is education. So awareness of what's available, awareness of the program, awareness of the referral process and how to engage in that. All of that is part of the education piece. It's pretty critical to, and I think in the chat, we've seen it over and over today, to know what are the specific needs of the families, what languages are needed, what's the way that they want to receive those communications. So what's the best format and all of that. So we're really, in this year, trying to vet and identify the most variety of ways that we can, because we want this to not only be adoptable, we want this to be adaptable in all of our local settings. If there is a concern identified, then we start into the flow chart. So you can see step 1, somebody has identified a concern, and it could be anyone. So let's say that a friend of a student identifies that their friend has a concern. So that student then can engage in the referral process. And so we're helping schools understand what that looks like. That peer can give information to school staff, and then that staff, you see the acronym SAT, that's the student assistance team. That team then will review that information and determine what needs to happen next. Conversely, if there isn't a referral, they can also be identified on an early screening or early warning system. So if schools have in place, or if parents have identified on a screening tool concerns, that also can kind of check the box if we need to look more deeply at what's going on with this student. So that may be reviewed during a student assistance team meeting or other building level teams. And you can see building level teams, PBIS teams, MTSS teams, whoever it is in the building. As part of our student assistance program, we're asking schools to align this with what already exists, as opposed to adding a new thing. So if they have fully functioning teams that are reviewing student mental health concerns, that's the team that would be ideal for the student assistance program process. You can see if the caregiver does not want this to continue, we may stop here at the flowchart, or if it's a tier 1 concern, if it's something that our universal approaches can address, then we'll do that there. If, however, it is a concern that needs to go further, then we go to step 2. So the idea that we're reviewing whatever data is available, we're gathering additional information from the caregivers, from the students, from school personnel, or others who may know this child if they're involved in community agencies. All of that information then is, with consent, obviously, is provided to the student assistance team. And that team then can use that to make a determination about the type of service or support that is most appropriate for that student and responding in a very timely manner. If there isn't a concern, though, they can stop here. They don't need to continue. But Kyle, I'll let you continue to the next slide if we need to proceed to step 3. I'm going to take a look over here. Yeah, so adoptable and adaptable. Absolutely. And yeah, we're incorporating this into what already exists. We've heard time and time again that time is a huge concern with our schools. And we don't want to add things to people's plates. We want to integrate. We want to align. We want to streamline. I know that word came up earlier, as best we can. So if there was a concern identified, the idea then would be that this student assistance team, along with the caregivers, the providers, whoever is coming together on behalf of that student, develops the plan. So that plan may be whatever the service is. That plan may include how to progress monitor. It may include how we're going to implement the support. Whatever needs to happen is part of that plan. And then we implement. That's step 4. Obviously, we've heard data over and over again, which I love this group. It's an easy group to talk about because you all understand the importance of data and evaluation. That's a critical piece of step 4. So if we need more intense services, there may be referrals that happen out into the community. If an internal school service meets the need, that may be what happens. But the idea is that everyone is aware of all of these different services and supports. The data is used and the information is used to make the best decision. And then once a plan is implemented, it's evaluated and checked regularly and then changed if needed. So things are not working as well as we're hoping, that we change what's happening or we move to something else. For students who may need to be hospitalized or have outside service, re-entry plans are part of what we're doing as well. So there's a lot of things going on in the student assistance program. And the question is, when is it going to roll out statewide? Our goal is to have it available in the summertime, and then so people can plan ahead of time. But the 22-23 school year, next upcoming school year, we hope it's available to everyone. So Kyle, can you go to the next slide? Families are a critical piece of our student assistance program model. They obviously have to provide things like consent if they want their child to move forward. If they don't provide consent, that's fine too. We'll talk about that in the next slide. But we do want them involved in the entire process. So we want to give them as much information and awareness about this process. We want them to give us feedback and information about their child, to be an active part of the student assistance team on behalf of their child. So some pieces of information that the caregiver would need to have are things like, what's the concern? What are school staff or what are the peers seeing? It's really important, I think, for schools to help parents understand the policies and to dig into that with them so that it's not something that they're just feeling like it's a paper they sign, but really answering questions and all of that. Referrals can be anyone. It can be the student or it could be anyone on behalf of the student. And then we're ensuring that the best interest of the child and that their age and developmental level are taken into account in the conversations that are happening within the schools. I see something about reentry. Yeah. So a lot of time, and that's what we're hearing, is that when a student may leave the school setting for whatever purpose, alternative school, hospitalization, whatever it may be, and then come back to their home school, there's not a lot of communication about that process. And we understand that specifics of the treatment may not be something that can be discussed, but we know that the process of getting them back in that transition, that's something that everyone can be aware of and really talk about and make that the easiest for the student and the family, and to ensure that they're successful and to check in on a regular basis. So again, those conversations are critical, as you just mentioned. So Kyle, I'll have you move to the next one. So this is if the caregiver is, oh wait, did I miss a slide, Deb? Nope, it's coming up. Okay, I got one more slide after this. Go back to the one you were just at, Kyle. I was prepared for the next slide. So if you could in the chat share ideas about ways that you think caregivers can partner during that initial identification of concerns and referral process. So what are ways that you can think of that would make that the most effective and efficient for families and students? Deb's going to chime in. I see you're getting to her mute button. Yeah, so digging into age, developmental level, appropriate support if a child has an intellectual disability or a traumatic brain injury or autism or something, something that needs to be talked about. Making it non-threatening, absolutely. Yeah, many times parents and families will shut down if it does feel threatening. Multiple opportunities, yeah, and Deb mentioned that a lot of times schools may try once and then they quit. Repeatedly coming back, leaving that door open is critical. Knowing who that access point of contact is, yes. So having that always available, that families know I can go to this person or I can go to this office. This is who I need to connect with. Yep. Having parents identify what they're seeing at home and sharing those with the team. Parents and caregivers may not always know how important that information is. Developing trust, creating a safe space for families to talk, explaining and guiding through the process when there's something new, and especially if there's a mentor or a peer who's been through it. Caregivers love to hear from fellow caregivers who've been through that process, yeah. And positioning families as the knowledge bearer, absolutely. Talking with as opposed to at families, that's critical, yeah. So you're seeing this full engagement, true, respectful, empathic engagement that is two-way, not one directional at them. That is critical, absolutely. All right, Kyle, you can go to the next one. So this is when, if a caregiver does not give consent during the student assistance program, that's absolutely okay. It is the caregiver's choice to or to not give consent. But what we don't want to happen is that the student assistance team then just says, we give up. There's so many things that can continue to happen even without consent, and that's what this slide is. So obviously we'll respect that caregiver's decision. We're going to leave the door open. We just talked about that. Leaving the door open to any future concerns or communication that the family may want. Providing them with their refusal letter so they have documentation of that as well. And there should be information in that letter about how to access that point of contact again. The school student assistance team and others will continue to monitor the student. If there's anything that is concerning, another referral may come back to the student assistance team and additional contact to that family, and that's fine. Continue to update the parent and guardian as needed, and also to provide contact information to agencies. The family may choose to connect with those agencies outside of school, and the school may not be aware of that, and that's fine if they want to do that completely on their own. So again, empowering the families in the best way that we possibly can, even if consent isn't given for the internal student assistance program model. And then making sure that they're not feeling blamed. Thank you, Meredith. Yeah, too often families do feel blamed. Go ahead, Deb.
Well, I was just going to say, even in the not giving consent, there are so many pieces, so many of those steps of Epstein's work. I mean, you can see decision making, you can see connection to community resources, you can see parent education, because there is some level of parent education in that. So even in our non-work with parents, there are those steps of involving the parent in what's going on with the student.
And go ahead and go to the next slide, Kyle. And before I talk about this slide, I just wanted to mention too, we've talked a lot about what the family and caregiver support and resources may look like. But part of the Ohio School Wellness Initiative, which I hope will get everyone on this call excited, is that we're creating what we're calling a technical assistance bundle of resources as well. And what that is a whole series of resources for folks like you who are the TA providers. And so we're going to have kind of a step-by-step process document, resources documents, and frequently asked questions documents that you, as someone who may be supporting a school or supporting families, you can use this technical assistance resource bundle in your work with any groups that are hoping to establish student assistance program models in their local setting. So that is upcoming as well, and we hope to have that in the upcoming school year as well. So stay tuned. And then here's just quickly the effective components, which we've talked about many of these, but obviously there's direct services for our students across that full continuum of supports. It's important to think about what your policies are and have staff development and professional development opportunities, internal referrals, all of them. I think we've talked about everything in this slide, but these are the key components of effective student assistance models. And we're very well aware of couching it in this best practice. So any questions about the student assistance program model or the Ohio School Wellness Initiative before I turn it over to Deb? And I know I didn't talk about staff wellness, but that's a key component as well. So any questions? All right, Deb, if there are any, continue to put them in chat and I will do my best to answer them. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Deb, to talk about School Navigator and Family Navigator.
Sure. So one of the other systemic approaches that we wanted to share with you is School Navigator, which is an evidence-based program. And it's currently being utilized in our state with Union County the Union County Mental Health Board. Do we have anybody in here from Union County? Okay. Well, if we do, you can chime in because you're probably aware of this. So our friends at the Union County Mental Health Board, they've partnered with Marysville Schools and Mary Haven, which is a community mental health organization, to implement the School Navigator program. And as such, they created a School Navigator toolkit. And so we've included that. I think I mentioned we have a Google folder for you all. We've included the School Navigator toolkit in your packet. So you feel free to take this and try to launch it wherever it seems logical for you to try to launch. But this was designed by those folks. So I just want you to know it's their hard work that went into this, and we're just sharing this good news with you. So Kyle, can you take us to the next slide? So the School Navigator program model, the overall purpose is to develop this cohesive, collaborative relationship between school staff and families, and to allow for a unified intervention and communication for the sake of the child. And so it's really about how do they bring all of those players together in a very specific way. And what Cricket talked about in the student assistance program is a large school-wide model. This kind of narrows the focus just a little bit. So this could be one of the programs in a student assistance program, but this narrows the focus to once youth have been screened or there's been an identified need for either mental health or substance abuse kind of programming. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay, I'm certainly not going to read this to you. This is part of their toolkit, but these are some of the things that a school navigator or case manager, sometimes called, that they might be involved with doing. They'll help support in consultation with school staff. So let me just back up a little bit. And the model as they implement it is they work. Marysville works with the school navigator as an employee of Mary Haven. So they have a kind of an outside person who is the school navigator. It doesn't have to be that way. In this particular case, it is. And so this person receives the referral. They come and they do some kind of screening, an expert screening, some kind of level of care screening, and then move forward with providing services or navigating services for that family. So essentially, they're about linking to community resources, supporting the youth and the family, visiting the youth and the family in their home. So this is not a school, it's a school linked services, not necessarily a school-based service. Can you go to the next slide? So this is the quick roadmap for this work. Is simply a referral is made, and the navigator gets this referral, and within 1 to 3 days makes a connection with the student to visit with them, to meet with them. And they can meet with them at school, they can meet with them at home, but they make that connection to meet with them, and that includes parent consent. The third part of that is the navigator does, an expert does some kind of screening tool, and they've listed some of the screening tools there that they use. They find the results then of that screening tool, and they develop a plan, whether it is brief intervention or whether it is some type of referral to treatment, and then they begin that work of brief intervention. Go to the next slide. So this is their framework, and so you can see that it's systematic. That they look at universal screening for all students, and then identify low risk, medium risk, or high risk, and then follow the protocol as is necessary. And as a student presents as medium risk or high risk, that's when a referral is made for the school navigator to begin their work. And then as they begin their work, they determine what is the best with the family, what is the best plan of action. So they have 3 levels of care that they work on. And part of that, again, is navigating young people and their families to community services. So even though Mary Haven is the organization that provides the navigation service, not all referrals are made to Mary Haven. Referrals are made where it is most appropriate and what makes sense for the family to do. So that can include a functional behavior assessment or a building intervention plan, but it is a structured formal plan that the navigator then works with the family to implement.
There is one question, Deb, about whether the navigator is the same as the ESC's mental health navigators.
That's a good question. I think it could be. Are you using this framework? I'm not sure who asked that question. Is this the framework you're using?
That was Terry.
Okay. It certainly could be. I think it's through Project Aware. I'm not sure. That's a good question. So apparently you don't know Cricket either.
Well, so I was just saying in chat, in general, so the navigator positions that Deb is describing really are about connecting to outside services within the community. And then I did mention within our student assistance program model, we have a student assistance coordinator internal to the school that is someone who really can make the broad connections internal to school, external to school, among all the key stakeholders. So there may be opportunities for both of these within a community, where certain communities may find that one is more valuable than the other. So in a school setting, for example, that there may not be a lot of internal school services, a navigator really might be the best model. If there's only internal services, maybe a student assistance coordinator model, that schools and communities will need to decide what type of position might make the most sense for their local area.
Sure. Can you go to the next slide? So we know that the school navigator has to be kind of a generalist. They need to know a little bit of information about a lot of things. So some of the things that are on there are youth behavioral health, major disorders, motivational interviewing, which is really important. kind of knowledge of systems, de-escalation strategies. They also need to know like child welfare and community resources. They need to know about eligibility to benefits because they're going to be able, they need to be able to connect families to those benefits so that young people can get the help that they need. They need to know how to interact with families, and family checkup, which we're going to talk about next, could be one of those strategies. So really, this is about about aligning and integrating the work of many types of approaches. Do they do home visits? Yes, they do home visits. And in fact, primarily the work that they do is in the community. So it's in the home and connected to community service providers. So can we go to the next slide? So I'm not going to, obviously I'm not going to read all of this to you, but this is in the Quick Start Guide in the toolkit. This kind of gives you an overview of the key personnel, the community members that you would need, how you would run an agenda, how you might process this, and how you might launch it and roll it out. And so we, like I said, we've included this guide in there. This really is just a guide to get you started based on the work that the Union County folks have done. So it's not a very long guide, but it's a guide that's as it says, it's a quick start guide. Go to the next slide then. So, and that's just, it's just our school navigator kit. And their contact information is on there, and they would be happy, I'm sure, to talk to anybody about that. So can we go to the next slide? Then can you go back one more? There we go. So the next kind of systematic program that we're going to talk about is Family Checkup. And Family Checkup is a program out of Oregon University, and it's really, it's a brief strength-based intervention model for young people. It promotes child outcomes by improving parenting and family management practices. So if we go back to Epstein's work, we're talking about parenting, we're talking about learning, learning at home. And in here, you'll also see some decision-making, family decision-making, and community resources. And it's an evidence-based program that's been around for a while. Can we go to the next slide? Really, it has 4 pieces to it. There's an interview, which is motivational interviewing, and the idea is to build rapport with a family, and that it encourages and instills hope. And then once the interview is completed, then they move on to an ecological family assessment. It's a strength-based assessment, and it integrates all the information about a young person and the family, the dynamics, how everything is working. And it's really what's used to develop the intervention services. What I like about this program, and I have to admit, I'm not as well versed in this program as like this family or the school navigator program, but from what I've seen about this program, one of the pieces that I love about is this feedback to family. And again, they use the motivational interviewing, the provider uses a motivational interviewing technique and goes back to the family and goes over the results. So it's not just doing the assessment and then start plugging them into services. They go back over the results and present the results in terms of feedback and present a menu of opportunities that a family can, again, have some decision making in terms of what they think will be helpful to them and their child. And then they follow up with these support services. And their support services, really, they have an 8-week model, a 4-week model, and a 2-week model. So an 8-week model obviously is the more intensive, where they spend time and they visit with the family on a weekly basis for 8 weeks and get them connected to services, and obviously the 4 weeks and the 2 weeks respectively, depending on where the family is in that cycle. But this is completely done away from the school. So where we have the SAP model, which is completely school-based, school navigator, which is kind of a hybrid between school and home, family checkup is completely done at home. So you have kind of this whole array where the school, the interventions can be done at school, but home is the main environment. So, yes, it is very family-centered, Carrie, very family-centered. So can we go to the next slide on family checkup? So really, it's a way to provide any parent or a provider working with a parent on ways to connect with multiple services. And it's been used in multiple settings. It's been used in hospitals, with schools, with community service providers, university settings, lots of different settings. So it is one of those that seems to be pretty adaptable and adaptable depending on what environment you're in. I think it would be something that would be a strong parent involvement type of intervention for youth mental health.
And there's a question about, are the follow-up programs conducted in the home? Are they virtual? Are they as individual families, or are they in groups? Those sorts of things.
As I understand it, they're done in the home and they are done individually with the family. Now, they may connect them to a program that is a group-based program. So they may be connected to a NAMI family support group, but the work done with the family is individual. That's great. Any other questions about either School Navigator or Family Checkup? Okay. Well, we are gonna try something. I'm not sure because none of us are all that technologically savvy here. I'm gonna go to the next screen. Okay. And Cricket is gonna put in the chat a link to our Jamboard. And if you've used Jamboard, then you know how to do this. You just go click on the sticky note and type something, and it will add that to that. I don't know, Kyle, can you click on that and pull it up so that we can see the Jamboard on the screen?
So for anyone who adds something, you'll have to do it on your own screen, and then you'll be able to come here to see if you just want to see the virtual.
So what we want you to add to this is tell us how do you plan to use the information you heard in today's session. I see some sticky notes, but I'm not seeing it on our screen. Is that something, Cricket, do you think you could open it up?
It's Deb, you can't see it?
No, we're not seeing your screen yet, Kyle. Keep adding.
I think
I would say hit refresh. If you hit refresh, your sticky notes will come about.
Kyle, I also think maybe you are still sharing your PowerPoint screen.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
You may want to not share PowerPoint.
Share
there you go.
different. Here we go. And this should.
Sorry, I threw you a curveball there.
We just like to try new technology things once in a while to keep us on our toes.
All right. Can y'all see it now? Oops. Let's see.
Okay, while Kyle's working on that, I'm going to read.
There you go, Kyle.
All right.
Great. Okay. So we see, I opened up some resources in my browser, findhelp.org. I plan to review that and see if we can get some of that added to our state website. Great. Sharing information with LEAs and SST staff. Definitely sharing with colleagues and districts I work with, as well as reviewing resources to build own capacity. Sharing information with liaisons. Sharing websites. Share with my colleagues first to discuss how we can incorporate it into their work, whether at district meetings, PBIS trainings, principal coaches, and family leaders. I plan on sharing the SAP flowchart. Brainstorming ideas with districts using Epstein's keys for projects that districts are working on related to family community engagement. review with colleagues to determine what is currently in place and what can be enhanced. Great. Awesome. Anything else that you want to share? Well, I will leave that up, and I want to go back to you can keep putting things on there. I want to go back to our very first activity was to hear what you expected of today. So I just want to kind of go over that, and you can kind of put in the chat, yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down, however you feel about it. Today, our hope was to give you some useful strategies. That's one of the things you wanted to hear about was useful strategies. So if you felt like you got some useful strategies, you can either thumbs up or thumbs down or yes or no. Some information that gave you hope, some data that shows that there's hope. Some free resources.
I'm going to pop the resource thing right now, Deb.
Okay, the Google folder?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Some ideas for scaffolding or building this up. Examples from other schools. I think we did hear some great examples. You all brought some great examples to the table of what Ohio schools are doing. Tips for families for support. I think we talked about that a little more indirectly in terms of like the SAP model and family checkup, but probably some more direct tips might be in order as a next step for us to work on. And some information about networks or coaching practices. And I'm not sure that we got too deep into that, but those are what you had hoped for. We certainly hope we met those expectations, and we're open to any questions you might have. Okay, if not, we will turn this back over to you, Thomas.
Yes, thank you all so much. I do want to encourage, though our colleagues here and the presenters have offered to, follow up with any questions you might have, we are in the room with them now. So if anything pops in your mind, love to just reiterate that offer to share now. But while you are with me, I see some thanks are already coming through in the chat. Please provide a big thanks to our colleagues here. When I put this together, did not realize that this was the day after a holiday, so I feel like I kind of contributed to this morning being a little foggy and slow moving, but we got so much great information, and I appreciate so much you tying it to the NNPS framework, since so many of us are very familiar with that. And overall, just thank you so much to you all for being here. We, as was mentioned, will share. We'll make sure that we share all these resources coming up in. We'll have a follow-up email, also be in our shared space, so look out for that. We'll also have video of today in our shared space, so keep an eye out. Hopefully you see the presentation right now really quick. So we're just going to take a couple seconds to wrap up today. I know I jumbled through some announcements earlier, but turns out that we actually have a couple more announcements that we would like to share with you all now that we have a couple minutes. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Boone here to give some updates from the center. Thank you.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Great. Well, Dr. Meehan, you and your team from Miami are doing amazing work, and I'm really excited about it. I've been frantically taking notes throughout your presentation and really excited about the resources that are coming, and so glad you're doing the work of working with districts to really apply them and see how they, sort of give them a run before you put them out more broadly. So really excited about this, and really the strong way that you've brought families into the supports for students and supports for families. I agree with all of the chat, that all the support you've been getting here. So you've come to a great place. These are all folks, we are all folks who are going to take these resources and run with them and be in contact with you and be watching. So we appreciate, the links you've given us and things so that we can stay up to date and make sure that we're, continuing to connect and point people to the work that you're doing as well. I think that's something that we all love to do here is point to one another and each other's work. And so thank you for that. And this was just a huge area of concern, of course, for so many of us across the country, here in Ohio, and this group in particular, of how can we be better supports for connecting communities, families, and schools in support of students. And we know that happens at school and happens at home, but like, how do we bring these folks together in that? And so this is wonderful. So thank you for that. So just to the rest of the group here, some updates. We're excited to be kicking off the foundations class. We have folks from all over the country signed up for that. That's going to be a nice, big, strong group of folks coming through. And as you know, the Partnering with Families for Early Literacy online course is up and running and available. Folks will have a rolling registration for that and through May, and then the course will be closed up at the end of June. So we are excited to see folks also from around the country enrolling in that, but we hope that you'll be able to access that in any of your schools that are saying, we really want to connect with families in support of early literacy. Please, continue to point people to that. And of course, we recommend that people come together and do the work through that in person. I guess one of the big announcements, if we haven't already told you, is that there is a new federal application out for the statewide Family Engagement Center grant. And we are submitting an application for Ohio for the grant. It's interesting in that we'll be going into our 5th year of the grant and applying for a 1st year that would be during that same time. But we're not sure if they will offer a 5th year. And what we have heard that if they do another application, or if they do have more funding in the 5th year, they will look back at these applications. So we are working hard to create a really strong competitive grant for Ohio, and we want your input on that. So I want to open invitation for phone calls, text messages, emails from you saying, moving forward, let's do these things together. Or based on how we've been working together the last 4 years, supported by this grant, here's how these are the things, let's continue these things. Let's continue, maybe the coaching logs, maybe how we've used, how we've worked together around the finances that we've had together. So, or other ways. So please reach out to us and let us know. And we promise also to be sending you an invitation for a quick sort of open mic time with our team for us to listen to you as well. So there'll be a Zoom meeting for you to do that anytime you have thoughts and you want to share this with us. What I will tell you is, there's never a lot of time to do these applications. So the sooner, the better. The applications due mid-February, and we're going to need to be really building in all of the stakeholder feedback that we're getting from you and our state advisory council and from the Department of Education and the school districts that we work with. As we collect feedback from all of our partners, we want to make sure we're getting that now so that we can then weave that together into a strong application for Ohio. So wanted to let you know that, and also that we love hearing from all of you and the good work that you're doing. We just are so excited about all the work groups this year and all that you're doing. So Terry, I see you. Can you give us a list of the wonderful things you've accomplished that we work with? Yeah, it's hard to believe. Terry, are you thinking you'd like that list right now, or you just want to sort of, okay. Well, I sing your praises all the time, so I probably could just jump right into a list of the wonderful things that we, whenever. All right. I'm happy to do that. And just so you all know, I just want to, talking about sharing kudos. some folks who lead family engagement for the state of Kentucky were on a conversation with us last week. And we just wanted to point them to you and all of the voices from the field reports and all of the work that you do. And I think we spent a lot of time singing your all's praises there and how you are such great partners with us. So that's all from me, unless somebody has a question in the chat or wants to open their mic. But Tom, thanks so much for giving me a moment to talk with everybody.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for that. Exciting time. Would really encourage you all to reach out as you're one of our largest groups of colleagues and partners and stakeholders. So encourage you all to reach out. One thing I would like to share before sending us off to take our exit survey is that our next FCE network meeting is on March 1st. We've had the two shorter professional learning sessions focus in a row. The next one is going to be the full 4-hour meeting. So please make sure you're prepared for that. Another thing that I would ask is if you are kind of a collaborator in one of these work groups, we will be taking some time at the next meeting to check out what you've all been working on. And that time is going to really be yours to share the work you've been doing, get feedback, brainstorm ideas. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up to be thinking about that. I know a lot of work groups are meeting this week. So give some thought towards that. I'll share an email about the timing and how much time and interaction to expect and stuff in the coming weeks here. But just wanted to give you a shout out about that, so didn't catch anyone off guard and didn't feel like adding a little work to anyone's plate. With that, I just want to thank you all for your participation today. It was super excited to see all the great ideas that you were sharing. I feel like every time we have these conversations and share out, we learn something new about the great things happening in your region. So continue to share those with us. Thank you for all of your participation, and pretty please take the exit survey if you could today. We got a couple minutes. It should take less than 5 minutes. So if you could please jump in and do that now, this helps us kind of keep tailoring and fine tuning how we are providing content for you. So thank you very much. We'll be here in the room for a couple minutes, but I hope you have a wonderful Tuesday.